Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. May Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai's peace be restored unto you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Yahweh Call from the Great Millstone Orlando camp. Just back with some forecast. As the scriptures give us a general outlook concerning prophecy, but being that we are on our watchtower, and with that being said, we see Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, how he connects the dots. One of the biggest things that we are on the lookout for being the MOTB, the mandation of the MOTB, of course, which will be a new way of buying and selling, which will come in the form of this device that's going to be implanted under the skin, which, again, being on our watchtower, if you're paying attention, we see through the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai on the left hand, the elites, they are setting the groundwork for this to take place, because it's a controlled demolition. Again, as I've been saying, and as we've always been saying from the top on down, in order for them to usher in the new system, they had to collapse the old system. So it's a controlled demolition, and this is just, as I like to say, all fuel to the fire. Not to jump the gun, because again, being the spiritual weatherman, giving that forecast as the prophets of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, the four seers. This is just one of those topics. Been paying attention. Of course, standing on our watch. As I watched the Elder Malcolm's video, which I uploaded, my most recent upload. I shared on my page. The Elder Malcolm from Chicago did a very edifying video going into how pretty much a lot of EU nations, well, pretty much America's allies, man, they're setting sanctions against Babylon. Not to get into it, because again, I re-uploaded the video. I shared the video on my page, man. It's very edifying. And definitely check the video out. The video is very edifying. Because I don't know what I'm going to title this as of yet, but one of the titles I was considering was, hey, could this be the Operation, Operation Sandman? Is this the beginning of the Operation Sandman? And if you don't know about Operation Sandman, again, definitely look into it. Because again, it's a controlled demolition. It's a controlled demolition, man. More and more of America's allies are turning against America, doing away with the dollar. again, not to jump the gun, but this is why I have this video here. What's her name? I just saw this video earlier today. You see the video here on screen. Again, standing on the watchtower, just looking into this with the whole, well, again, it's like, yeah, I don't want to jump the gun, but this video here, it pretty much, for one, is more fuel to the fire. All right. But mainly, this sums up everything. This puts it all in a nutshell. Whoever this chick is, it's my first time seeing her. It's my first time seeing her, but she pretty much hits it. She's on point with as far as this economy, America's economy, and what's coming down the pipes. She's on point. It pretty much sums it all up, in a nutshell. And that's why I want to play Lord's Will, all roughly 10 minutes of this video, Lord willing, because again, it's a controlled demolition. They have to, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, collapse this current system to usher in the new system. So that's why, as I always say, man, this is just more fuel to the fire. So again, not to ramble, but she sums it up as far as what's coming, what's been happening, what's coming down the pipes, just current news as far as, again, the forecast for Babylon. All right, I'm gonna grab this real quick. I believe that's Ecclesiastes. Bear with me. Bear with me. It's been a hell of a week. But Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shabbatizah, this shit is about to come to an end. This shit is finally coming to a closure. Lord willing, sooner than we think. It's just a matter of, as I always say, America is one not so major event away from just all hell breaking loose. But I don't want to ramble too much. Let me grab this in Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 3. In that day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. So, and this is what we see. These economists, again, they can't. I'm talking about all these Glenn Becks, Peter Schiffs, and them. Here it is. These guys. Well, here it is. Because gold is one thing, but silver. And I do believe she touches on that in this video as well. Because if you want to get an inkling, an idea of what's coming down the pipes, pay attention to the gold, pay attention to the silver. Now, gold is been at an all-time record high. But silver just had a I believe silver right now is that's another thing that's at a that's a I'll say I'll say it like this: it's silver. Let me just look this up because it's just the fact that it's constantly changing, and every day, like brothers say, or to say, if you blink, you might miss something. So I'm gonna just look this up real quick. The price of silver right now. Bear with me, because it could have possibly changed. So the current price of silver per ounce is at about $63 an ounce, which that's yeah, that's needless to say, that's breaking news. That's pretty much swept under the rug. Gold at an all-time high, silver at an all-time high. Things like this, it would be breaking news, but again, they, of course, sweep it under the rug. But that is a tall tale sign that we're getting ready to transition into this new way of buying and selling. Transition into this new system. When you see gold and silver, the fact that it's constantly breaking records, all-time high records, yeah. And again, I do believe she touches on this in this video. But as I was reading in Ecclesiastes, because well, let me just finish this out. Ecclesiastes 12:3, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. So again, these economists, right? Again, because they can't tell you the end all be all. All they can tell you is to buy a guns, stock up on food, ammo, right? All they can tell you is, hey, get you some, because a lot of these guys, they're monetized, and gals, they're monetized. They get these sponsors, so they tell you to get off grid, right? Get into real estate, right, and things of that nature. But again, the scriptures tell you that now there's nothing wrong with, if you can help it, get you some gold, silver, whatever. But the scriptures say that it's not going to save us from the wrath of Yahweh Bashim Shai, ultimately. All right. But that's all these guys can tell you. Get your guns, your food, get you some gold, silver, right? But as the scriptures say, these people, man, they're going to be casting their gold, their silver. They're going to be casting it in the streets. So it's not going to save you. Ultimately, overall, it's not going to save you from the wrath of Yahweh Bashim Shai. But it says, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. So that's the point that I want to get. All right. The future of America. Which is why I want to play. One reason why I want to play this video, man, because what do you call it? This quantitative tightening, easing, right? In a nutshell, man, you can only kick the can down the road for so long. Eventually, that road comes to an end. and Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shabbat, man. This world is finally coming to an end, because goddamn, this road is finally come to an end. Because man, it's just like, what else? You know, the $1 million question, like, Lord, how long? It's like, what else, man? You know, every day. It's just a real draining feeling. You know, just that succubus spirit, man. Just being amongst this shit, being in this shit every day. That's why the scriptures talk about, Lord, not roughly paraphrasing, not allowing us to die in this pit. It's just like, man, how much longer do we gotta deal with this shit, man? You know, and at this point, man, that's why it's just a waiting game, man. It's just a waiting game. It's just a matter of patience, man. Because, man, it's just like, what more needs to be, you know? Again, how long? It all goes back to the how long question, the $1 million question, right? How long? But, you know, again, it's like without any further rambling, I want to play this video out. Copyright disclaimer, fair use. I'm not making any type of monetary gain, because Lord, you know, Lord's will, Lord knows I can use the shekels, but hey, you know, Yahweh Bashima Shah, he provides a way, man. You know, so again, man, you know, copyright disclaimer, fair use. I'm not making any type of monetary gain. This is just for informational purposes. All right, so Yahweh Bashima Shah, they don't take this video down. So without rambling, without further ado, I'm gonna play this video, and you know, I'm probably going to, you know, stop and interject. So just bear with me, Baba Kusha.
Right now, the Fed is gearing up to buy massive amounts of U.S. debt, but they're not doing it to stimulate the economy. They're doing it out of desperation, as one of our largest buyers walks away, a sure signal that the currency reset that we are all living through is accelerating, meaning your dollars are losing value fast, and that it has never been more important to make sure that you're protecting your financial future outside of the fiat currency system with physical gold and silver. In case you missed it last week, the Federal Reserve quietly ended QT, quantitative tightening, or the process of letting assets, such as U.S. bonds, roll off their balance sheet to shrink liquidity. The Fed has been tightening since March of 2022 in an attempt to fight the inflation that they themselves ignited by printing trillions in 2020, but now this phase is ending. Not because the Fed has run out of assets to get rid of. No, in fact, the Fed still has trillions left over from pre-2020 on their balance sheet. And it's certainly not because the Fed hit their inflation target of 2%. In fact, inflation is on the rise, currently sitting at 3%. And 3% is completely misleading as well, because that's just how much inflation is going up right now. It doesn't even take into account what we've already lost, which most estimate is around 25% in the last 5 years. But if you ask me, even that is conservative. But what's changing today is a structural shift within the U.S. debt cycle. See, inflation, while terrible for everyday Americans and for optics, it's actually not really a problem for those at the top, because inflation might be their only way out. Inflation, or a devalued currency, a currency that is continually worth less, makes the real value of the U.S. debt worth less as well, meaning that it's easier to pay off. Nominally, it stays the same, but the real value shrinks, which is very important when you're dealing with $38 trillion and counting. In fact, by the time you finish watching just this video, the debt will have gone up roughly $60 million more. But it's not just the size of the debt that's the problem, it's the size of the debt coupled with declining demand. See, because the dollar has always been the global reserve currency, there has always been strong demand for U.S. debt. But as fiscal uncertainty and geopolitical risk have grown, the demand is disappearing. There's a tired and outdated saying, I'm sure you've heard it before, there will always be a buyer for U.S. debt. Sure, that's true, there's a buyer for everything. But at what cost? That's the question we need to be asking. Because as demand continues to decline, buyers are demanding higher rates of return or higher yields to take on U.S. debt. Higher yields means that our debt costs more. In fact, today, just the interest, the cost of servicing the U.S. debt, is over $1 trillion, the third largest line item, right behind Social Security and higher than our entire defense budget. More interest means we have to spend more to finance that interest. By spending more, it means we have to issue more bonds, because that's how we spend. We create more debt. But more debt requires more buyers, which we don't have. Do you see how this is a cycle here? And it continues to go around and around. But that declining demand, that is what is accelerating this spiral downward at a rapid pace. And history shows us what happens when nations reach this point, when unsustainable breaks. It's an acceleration moving forward in a currency reset. A currency reset is both a process and an event. A process where confidence in a currency collapses, often as a result of overspending, which leads to inflation, hyperinflation, or the rapid increase of prices, and ultimately an official revaluation or devaluation of the currency, which results in the fiat currency being worth its intrinsic value, which is always zero. It's what we've seen happen in Venezuela, Argentina, Weimar Germany, the list goes on and on. Overprinting, inflation, hyperinflation, reset. Which brings us back to today with the Fed ending QT, Japan's bond market, and what happens next. Over the past week, Japan's bond yields have been surging, with their 10-year hitting the highest level since 2007 and their 30-year hitting record highs. But do not be fooled. This is not a boring technicality, and it most certainly is not a Japan-only problem. Japan has often been called the world's largest creditor, and this is largely because Japan's rates have always been low, so Japanese investors have always put their funds elsewhere, such as the United States. In fact, Japan is the largest holder of U.S. debt. As Japan's yields continue to rise, the math no longer makes sense for those funds to go elsewhere, which is why we are expecting to see an outflow of funds from the U.S. back to Japan at a time when the U.S. needs buyers the most. Every dollar that leaves the U.S. and goes back to Japan is a dollar that you have to find a buyer for, and if the buyers aren't there, or they're demanding too high of yields, well, who do you think is going to step in? The Federal Reserve, the lender of last resort. But what happens?
So, hopefully you're catching all this. Because Ammon, or Japan, the so-called Japanese, basically being a major holder of America's debt, as she's breaking down, again, hopefully you're catching all of this. Real quick, because again, this video pretty much sums up as far as the economy goes, which is why I read the Ecclesiastes 12 in that part. I wanted to emphasize on, looking at the windows be darkened. Man, in a nutshell, as I've been talking about on this channel, this debt bubble, man, this shit is about to explode finally. Because America being, Japan, the so-called Japanese being one of America's biggest allies, and they're pretty much saying the hell with buying America's debt. Like she's breaking down. Babylon. No one wants to pretty much pick up this debt, America's debt. And as she's getting ready to segue to, well, let me not jump the gun, but I'm going to grab this in Obadiah 1 and verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy. So all the nations that were in alliance with Babylon. This is why I mentioned, referenced the Elder Makama's video, which again I uploaded it. I shared it on my page on this channel. Check that video out, man. It's very edifying. It's very heavy, man. Cause that Operation Sandbag, man. Lord willing, again, man, Yahweh Ba'ashmal Shabbatazah, hey, this may this be it, man, because goddamn, may this be it. All right, when you go into that Operation Sandbag, just to nutshell it, all right, just to sum it up, it's pretty much a that Operation Sandbag was a Sandman. It's either Sandman or Operation Sandman or Operation Sandbag. It might be Operation Sandman, but when you go into it, it's all of these nations simultaneously punch or basically dumping America's debt, putting sanctions on Babylon, all right, which the spearhead of that over the years has been BRICS, all right. What's that? BRICS. That's Russia, China, or Brazil, China. Well, let me just look this up. Because at this point, it's what do you call it? It's BRICS plus, because there's other nations that want to get on board with the BRICS. Which it entails doing away with the dollar, all right, which takes away from Babylon's hegemony, all right, which is, again, it's just all fuel to the fire, all right. So the BRICS is Brazil, China, bear with me, excuse me, yeah, I know I was missing one, BRICS. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, at this point, as it stands, it's the BRICS plus, because you have other nations, all right, such as Egypt and other nations. It's the BRICS plus. I believe Argentina. All right, more and more nations want to coincide with the BRICS. All right. And again, overall, it takes away from America's hegemony. All right. And this is what we're seeing more and more, which is what is this all going to lead to ultimately? It's going to lead to this here. It's going to lead to this here in Revelation 17. Because I posted this in the chat with brothers, because Trump is talking about, it's being said, allegedly, Trump is talking about forming his own, what is it? He's talking about forming his own, how can I put it? G7, pretty much. And with that, he's talking about forming this his own G7 unit without the European nations. And again, going back to the Elder Malcolm's video that he did, these EU nations, they're talking about the Operation Sandman. I believe it's the Operation Sandman. When you look into that, look into the Operation Sandman. All right, this is something that's been in the talks. It's been in the works. All right, but hey, it all goes back to the scriptures. A house divided. This is what it boils down to. A house divided, it can't stand. A house divided against itself. All right, because these Russians, these other Edomite counterparts, they are nothing but that. All right, Edomites. All right, and it's only fair. Just as a side note, it's only fair because there was civil war, civil unrest amongst us as a nation. All right, the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, and that's all this is. Just civil war, civil unrest amongst these Edomites. But this is what this is ultimately going to lead to, which is why I read that Obadiah, and I'm gonna read this here in Revelation 17, in verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So going into NATO, the EU, all right, which again, I highly encourage you to watch the Elder Malcolm's video. I reposted it. Watch that video. All right, because as much as Jake tries to say that this truth is boring, all right, there's nothing going on. Hey, there's damn near breaking news every day. All right, and that video that Elder Malcolm posted, man, hey, that's breaking news. All right, you talking about EU nations, which is a part of the beast. All right, the beast consists of NATO and the EU, but the fact that you have EU nations talking about sanctions against America, man, hey, that's breaking news, I would say, in my humble opinion. But hey, getting back into it, man. Japan being one of America's allies, they're dumping the U.S. debt. And if you understood how this works, because again, as the shorty here is breaking down, man, the fact that no one, there's no buyers for America's debt. Well, as she's getting ready to segue here, I'm gonna go ahead and play this back. Let her cook.
U.S. back to Japan at a time when the U.S. needs buyers the most. Every dollar that leaves the U.S. and goes back to Japan is a dollar that you have to find a buyer for. And if the buyers aren't there, or they're demanding too high of yields, well, who do you think is going to step in? The Federal Reserve, the lender of last resort. But what happens when they step in and start buying our own debt? They talked about ending QT, but it's essentially restarting QE, quantitative easing, firing up the old printing press. And you cannot create more units of an existing currency without devaluing the existing units of said currency. This is how each and every single one of our dollars are worth less. This is where it becomes so important to make sure that you understand how to protect yourself throughout these specific scenarios, what we can learn from past currency resets. And I'll give you a hint. It's not going to be the dollar, it's not going to be stocks and bonds, and it's not even going to be real estate that protect you through this reset. Historically, time after time, for thousands of years, there is one asset that truly protects well through the reset, and that is physical, tangible gold. It's the...
And just real quick, again, as I've been reporting on, as the apostles, specifically Apostle Tahar, for years, he's been talking about this, man, which is encouraged us to those of us, to look into these things, just dealing with, just getting into this stuff, man, the economy and, how the economy works, money and this and that. But again, as I've been reporting on, the fact that gold is at an all-time high, silver it just broke records, man. Silver is just at a what, like I just read, as I just looked into, $63 an ounce. You got these central banks, man. Why are they hoarding up all this gold, man? The silver, right? Why are they hoarding these precious metals? Why is that? We have to know these things. You know, that's a tall tale sign for something. All right. The gold going up, man. The silver going up, that's a tall tale sign. It is this dollar is getting ready to collapse. All right, again, more fuel to the fire. More fuel to the fire.
Exact same reason that central banks are buying gold in record quantities, because they understand what is coming next for the dollar, and therefore the global monetary system that is based on the dollar. As it is accelerating through this currency reset, as the dollar inevitably is going to be worth less and less, there is only one true asset that nations and individuals turn to during these times where trust is broken. And it is gold, because gold has intrinsic value. It doesn't rely on counterparty promises. There is zero counterparty risk, and you cannot print more of it. This is why, for me, gold is not just another investment. Yes, it's up 60% year to date. Yes, it's outperformed the stock market, the Magnificent Seven, and Bitcoin, but that is not even why I hold it. I hold gold as my insurance policy against what is coming next, because there will be a day in the future where everyone will look around and say, I do not have enough gold. That is what has happened time and time again. Now, if you want to learn more about currency resets throughout history and how different assets are impacted, as well as what you can do to protect yourself and the timeline we're on, you can always download our free Built to Endure report. It's exactly why we created it.
And that's when they start promoting their escape plan or whatever. But again, as I quoted in the beginning, man, as the scriptures say, your gold or silver, it's not going to save you in that day. All right. But man, when you get into this stuff, man, when you see what's coming, man, because what is all this going to lead to? All right, it's going to lead to this here in Revelation 6. Again, more and more of these nations, they are dumping America's debt. They're dumping the debt, man. You know, these countries, they buy up America's debt. But more and more, America is showing itself to be unreliable, untrustworthy. So what does that mean? Such as Japan, all right, again, one of America's closest allies, they're saying, hey, man, the hell with America. You know, and they're dumping that debt, man. So what is all this going to lead to? These Fed rate hikes and all these things, what is it going to lead to? Because this has been a part of as I read in Ecclesiastes 12, man. These economists, right, going into it, man. The writing on the wall for America is not good, man. You know, it's not good whatsoever. Because what are they getting ready to do? They're getting ready to print more dollars out of thin air. They're getting ready to print more dollars out of thin air. All right. So what does that mean? Well, it's going to lead to this here in Revelation 6. That's why, man, one day we're going to wake up, man, and shit is just going to be different. And, you know, right now we're in that peace and safety, man. You know, the government for now is opened back up, which I believe that's been extended to until sometime in January. All right, at least until the end of January, you know, the government has been opened back up. You know, gas right now is under $3, right? So people are right now they're in that peace of safety spirit. But one day we're gonna wake up and, man, shit is gonna be different. These people, they're going to be at each other's throats. Why is that? Well, this is what all this is going to lead to. Revelation 6. Revelation 6 and 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And of course, the scriptures say an unjust balance is that's roughly paraphrasing. That's off in the eyes of Yahweh Bashma Shai. All right. An unjust balance that's off in the eyes of Yahweh Bashma Shai. But hey, we live in a system where it's a debt-based system. Everything is off course, as the scripture said, man. The whole foundations of this world, man, everything is just off course. It's just out of whack. Everything is out of tune. But dealing with this debt system, oh my goodness. When you get into it, man, I always talk about it. When you get into it, man, when this shit finally pops, when this bubble finally, because you can only inflate the bubble. You can only inflate air in the balloons so much until eventually it pops. And this debt bubble, man, when it's getting ready to pop, man, when this shit pops, oh my goodness. Because what are we going to see? Again, we're coming upon hyperinflation. All right, that's why verse 6, it says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. I see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So the point being that, hey, man, once it gets to this point, all right, hyperinflation is going to make Venezuela, as she mentioned, it's going to, Zimbabwe, if you've been paying attention, what's going on in the news, what's that? The Weimar Republic, man, when this debt bubble pops this time, it's going to make all those events look like child's play. This is why cannibalism is going to come back in a major way. The scriptures talk about neighbor against neighbor. When this shit pop, when this debt bubble, when it finally pops, man, hey, you wake up one day, when we wake up, and it's $500 for a gallon of milk, man. Here it is. Gallon of milk is already expensive as it is, right? $3-4 for a gallon of milk, man. Which you shouldn't be drinking that shit anyways. That pus. You shouldn't be drinking that shit anyways. But here it is. That shit is already expensive as it is. $3-4 for a gallon of milk. But when you wake up one day, man, and that shit is what, $500, $1,000 for a gallon of milk. What do you think these people are gonna do? What do you think they're going to do? How do you think they're going to react? A loaf of bread. That's what this is saying. That's what this is saying, man. A measure of wheat for a penny, right? Your whole paycheck going towards a damn loaf of bread, because shit is just so bad. Shit is just expensive. This is, again, the hyperinflation. This is what all this is going to lead to. All this it's just going to be fuel. It's just fuel for the fire. This is what all this is leading to. It's just fuel to the fire. All right. And through the power of Yahweh Ba'ashim shot on the left hand, these, at least they're setting it up. They're setting it up. All right, it's controlled demolition. All right, and that's why, like the prophecy states in Revelation 13, man, hey, in order to buy and sell, hey, you're going to have that seed hip. Somehow Esau, he's, this is him ushering in the new system, man. They have to crash the old one. And this is what we're seeing, if you're paying attention, if you're on your watch. All right, this is what we're seeing. We're all witnessing. That's why it's just a matter of patience. It's just a waiting game, man. That's why I always say, man, it's just a matter of the not so major event away. Here it is. They're talking about terrorist attacks, right? All right. All these black swan events. It's just like, come on with it already, But that's why, again, it's just a waiting game, man. It's just a waiting game. Eventually, we're just waiting on the straw to break the camel's back. That's what we're waiting on, the straw to break the camel's back, for them to finally usher in this new system, this new way of buying and selling. But Lord willing, this was edifying, giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Shalom to you. Hopefully let